distinguished guests, welcome to another episode of Life on the Grid, hosted by Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish and Ben Snyder. Tonight we welcome Michael Deisbeck and music from Eli Ahmad. So sit back, grab a bite, grab a nice drink, and enjoy another episode of Life on the Grid.
Here's the uptown Charlotte skyline from the WBTV webcam. Spring is in the air. April is going to be over soon. And we'll get to all the fun. That's the month of May right around the corner. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Life on the Grid. My name is Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish, and with me is Ben Snyder from Grid Live Encore. It's hard to believe it's almost been a half a year since our last episode of Life on the Grid. Unfortunately, life got busy and other things had to become the main focus during the time while we put our podcast on the back burner. But we're back now and hope to do as many episodes as time allows. But we hope we never go this long again without new content, because we love interviewing members of the motorsports industry. Now a quick topic before we get into the main show. Major League Baseball returns after being on lockout for longer than a lot of people wanted. Ben, I know you're a baseball fan. What are your expectations for the 2022 MLB season?
You know, Kobe, I'm just happy we have games, because like you mentioned with the lockout, it was really in jeopardy for a while. And I think, after they announced that they were canceling the first week or 2 weeks or whatever it was, there was a lot of doubt as to when they might get a deal done. Fortunately, people got their act together, and looks like we're going to get all 162 games in. Got to be honest with you, though, it kind of sucked the life out of me, going through the lockout and, just being, having to deal with, I think in a lot of ways it's, what has happened with NASCAR in recent years, just pushing the traditional fans away with these rule changes to try to bring in a different audience, I suppose. I'm not a fan of the ghost runner on second base. I'm not a fan of the idea of the pitch clock that they seem to be experimenting with in the minor leagues. Not a fan of universal DH or the intentional walk rules either. So, I feel like the sport that I grew up with in many respects, a lot of the similar ways it's happened with NASCAR, with the playoffs and stage racing and things like that. It's not the same game that I was accustomed to as a kid. I still watch it. I still love my Philadelphia Phillies and, still try to catch a game wherever I can. But I think, there's just a lot of things that Commissioner Manfred has done that I don't necessarily agree with or don't think have helped the sport. And also, the attitude of, I guess it's analytics and metrics and things like that, resting pitchers and kind of changing how the game's played in that regard. I thought it was outrageous that Clayton Kershaw had a perfect game going through 7 innings only on 80 pitches. And I know it's early in the season, but, that still, how many opportunities are you going to get to be that far into a game, be 6 outs away from perfection, and they still end up pulling him because they want to make sure that he's, primed and ready to go for winning a championship, I guess. I don't know. It just seems kind of silly to me. Also doesn't help that my Phillies are 5-8. So, I know it's still early, but it hasn't been a great start to the season for them. And I believe they have the longest playoff drought of any National League team at the moment, which is kind of depressing to think about. It's been 10 years since, the era where they were National League East champs every year, and they had one of the best starting rotations in baseball. The late, great Roy Halladay and Cole Hamels, Cliff Lee, Roy Oswald, and a bunch of great offensive hitters as well, with Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, and Ryan Howard, and all those guys. Carlos Ruiz, our beloved catcher. All those guys are unfortunately no longer with the team, and in many cases retired. And despite that, I feel like we have a strong team this year with obviously Bryce Harper, who we're paying literally hundreds of millions of dollars for. And, I think he has lived up to expectations, certainly last year. Had a great year, but, despite bringing in Castellanos and Schwarber and some other guys as well, we still find ourselves fourth place in the National League East right now with our baseball team in Philadelphia. So it is kind of frustrating, and, it's not as fun being a sports fan when your team isn't doing as well as you'd like them to. But it's been tough to keep the faith here a little bit in Philadelphia, but I'm still doing my best. And, like I said, it's still early, so hopefully they can turn things around as well. I don't really have like a World Series, way too early World Series prediction I can give you, though, because I must admit my focus has been a lot more on the 76ers and the NBA playoffs going on right now. I know this is going to be taped and go up several days after we're doing this, but at the time we're taping this, I'm just getting off of the heart attack that gave me in Game 3 last night. Unfortunately, Joel Embiid hit that crazy 3-pointer to go up with a 3-0 series lead against Toronto. So hopefully they'll be able to close that out and move forward from there. But, in terms of the Phillies, it has been kind of hard to keep the faith over the last few seasons. But like I said, hopefully they can turn things around here.
Yeah, it was really wild that Joel Embiid was able to get that shot off in Toronto. I guess that's a little revenge for the shot that Kawhi Leonard hit on them a couple of years ago. So Joel Embiid was able to get them right back at the end there. That was really exciting. Love watching NBA playoff basketball. I can definitely be honest with our viewers and say I know a lot more about the NBA than I know about MLB. I'm be honest, I'm not really a big baseball guy, but I pay attention to most of the main things. And one thing I can definitely relate to with you, Ben, you said it's not fun being a sports fan when your team is not doing well. I am a Carolina Panthers fan, so I feel your pain going when things are not going well at all. At other sporting events, you have people chanting fire the coach of your football team. Things are not going well, and there's no clear direction for the franchise. Just a lot of incompetence and a lot of questionable decisions going on. But getting back to baseball. I know the Atlanta Braves. A lot of people in North Carolina are big fans of last year's World Series champs, the Atlanta Braves. I know they're really going to be missing their All-Star Freddie Freeman, who's now with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Really, really tough that Braves weren't able to keep him. So it'll be interesting to see how the Atlanta Braves are able to do this upcoming year without Freddie Freeman, all the way on the West Coast playing ball for the Dodgers in the great city of the Angels, Los Angeles, and and coming up in just a few days' time. This episode is probably going to air right around the same time it's happening as the 2022 NFL Draft. I'm not really sure what to expect for the Carolina Panthers yet. I know we have the sixth pick, I believe, in the first round. We could really do a lot of things with that. And since we traded for Sam Darnold, we really don't have a lot of picks to go around. So maybe an option could be trading back and collecting some additional picks so we can really start to build a team with young players. Don't really know what the quarterback situation is going to be right now. By the time this episode airs, we might have traded for Baker Mayfield. I honestly hope that's not true, but that's what's been rumored right now. And if we don't go with Baker, I have a feeling that number 6 pick is probably going to be Kenny Pickett, the quarterback out of Pittsburgh. Seems to be the most pro ready of this group coming along, and we also have a lot of great. Well, I'm not going to say potentially game changing quarterbacks in this year's NFL draft, but certainly some prospects who could definitely develop into a nice starters. I think Kenny Pickett probably be Carolina's best back. A lot of people are excited about Malik Willis as well. You have Sam Howell from North Carolina, and also have Matt Corral from Ole Miss. Some interesting young prospects there. And also we need an offensive tackle, and there's definitely quite a few good ones there. I'm not really sure what the Carolina Panthers are going to do, but right now it doesn't seem like things are going well for the franchise because it's really muddy right now with the direction we're going on. How do you think things are going for your Philadelphia Eagles, Ben?
I think they're going all right. I think the Eagles have had a fair amount of success over the last couple of decades, despite only having one Super Bowl to show for it. I think they're always going to be kind of a fringe playoff contender at worst. I know they've had a couple of seasons, like right when Andy Reid was let go, that they're 4-12, or they were 6-10, I think, when Chip Kelly was fired. So there are times where they've I guess it's kind of been the theme now that I think about it with Doug Peterson as well. If they're not in the playoffs, the coach is on the hot seat, I guess. But I don't really know what to expect from them this year. I've heard that it's one of the toughest years to kind of put together a mock draft. It looks like there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to what everybody's going to do. So it'll certainly be interesting to see how the draft goes and how teams start planning for the 2022 season. And also, I just want to follow up. I know you mentioned the Kawhi shot from a few years ago in Toronto. As a Sixers fan, that I'm honestly more bothered by what happened last year against the Hawks. And, it's going to be interesting to see when Ben Simmons comes back with Brooklyn. It sounds like he's planning to make his debut finally for the Nets in Game 4 of that series. But I feel like the 76ers, they I don't know if it's in their heads or what, but they have not been able to get past the second round. So, I don't necessarily view the season as championship or bust. They're the 4th seed, and I don't think people had those kinds of expectations for them going into this season. But if they can just get to the Eastern Conference Finals this year, I'll be satisfied and think that we've done about what everybody expected us to do this year. I know they brought in James Harden to win a championship, though, so they certainly should be aiming for the ultimate goal there. But that series against the Hawks it's going to stick with me for a while. Seeing Ben Simmons give up that wide open dunk, that honestly bothers me more. Because if Kawhi misses that shot, I feel like knowing the Sixers, they probably would have just lost in overtime anyway. But it was nice to see Embiid cast out those demons last night and get that shot off and win the game. Because 3-0 versus 2-1, that's huge, and I think it pretty much means the series is over at this point.
Yeah, series most likely gonna be over, and if they drop the next game, oh well, because you can just come back and just win the next game, and as I said in showbiz, that's all, folks. But at least your team is on the path to potentially try to make a deeper run in the playoffs this year. Because my team, the Charlotte Hornets, oh boy, that play-in game was really, I'll just be honest, that was embarrassing for the entire city of Charlotte. We got our butts handed to. It was just extremely embarrassing to be a Charlotte Hornets fan that night, to go out there on national television. Well, I believe the game was on ESPN. So one of the top sports channels out there, and get blown out the way that they did. And another team that I'm not really sure what direction they're headed, along with the Carolina Panthers, the Charlotte Hornets. I don't know what they're going to do, but they definitely need to do something if they want to keep a young star like LaMelo Ball around. Because if the Charlotte Hornets can't surround him with talent, get better on in all areas of the game, I don't see how they can keep their future all-star and attract other star players to play alongside him.
I think they're stuck where the Sixers were right before the whole process thing happened. You're not good enough to compete for a championship, but you're also not really bad enough to get the high draft picks you need to draft the top college prospects. I guess you got a Ball, a couple seasons ago, but it is frustrating to be stuck in that 7 to 10 seed range and feel like you're not really going anywhere. I think that's kind of where the Hornets have been for a long time now. So hopefully you guys can get some help over there and start making a deeper run.
Well, Ben, I believe it's time to introduce our newest guest. He's a manager of social media and driver services with an organization called the Rising Star Management Group, also known as Rsmg. Also a classmate of mine from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to Michael Daisbeck. Michael, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How are y'all?
Doing great. Yeah, Michael, we're really glad to hear that and looking forward to our discussion tonight. I know you were able to get your current job at Rsmg months after interning with a NASCAR Cup Series team, but please save your thoughts on that for a little later in the program when we dive deep into the internship in greater detail. Last year, I know you were able to work with the likes of Sammy Smith, Derek Kraus, Drew Dollar, and Michael Annette, who retired from full-time NASCAR competition at the end of 2021. And my first question for you this evening, which drivers are you working with in 2022, and can you describe what responsibilities you have with your current role?
Sure. This year, we still have Sammy Smith, we have Drew Dollar, and we have Derek Kraus. So Derek's in the truck program with Mac and Alley. We've got Drew running part-time with KBM and ARCA, and the select Gibbs starts on the Xfinity side. And then we have Sammy running full-time with KBM and the ARCA program as well. So like you said, my title is Manager of Driver Services and Social Media. So on a daily basis, my job is handling social media for those three, as well as they're helping with their sponsors and keeping stuff rolling. Anything that they need help with, whether it's social media or outside, which is the driver services side of my title. Anything that pops up they need help with, I've helped with stuff from just running them back and forth to the airport, running truck inserts down and forth from different vendors, helmets, all things like that. And so I just make sure that at the lowest level, I keep all the balls moving to keep their racing programs for themselves, from the personal side of things for them, moving fluently.
Yes, and it really seems like a lot of responsibility for a young guy like yourself in your early 20s. Like what you just mentioned, it's a lot on your plate. And here's a quick follow up to this: do you feel that pressure? Like I'm so young, I'm in my early 20s, and I have to be very responsible for all of this stuff and working with these drivers.
It's a little bit stressful. Thankfully, my work environment's really relaxed, which keeps some of that pressure off of me. My bosses and my coworkers aren't like helicopters, so like I thrive in that kind of environment where like they trust me to get my stuff done when I need to. But yeah, there is a little bit of stress that comes with knowing that on like the social side of things, where social is so important in today's society, that I'm to an extent responsible with these guys' racing careers off the track. Making sure they're not making fools of themselves, making sure all of our stuff looks clean, polished, and ready to go when it goes out on a various platform.
Yeah, and I totally understand where you're getting at, where you thrive in the type of environment when you have people right there who are like pushing you to be the best that you can be. I remember I believe it was 2020. I got to do PR with JD Motorsports for 2 races at Martinsville Speedway and Texas Motor Speedway for their driver at the time, Colby Howard. and while I was doing all the PR work for that, my boss for those 2 races, he was messaging me during the race, like telling me you need to do this and you need to do that, and it was extremely stressful. But working in motorsports, any business in general, there's always going to be that pressure on you. Some people thrive under pressure, some don't, but at the end of the day, we all need to make sure that we're ready to adapt and handle any type of stressful environment. And last year, I saw you posting a few photos from all the different places you were traveling with your job. And when you're just a fan of the sport, you may hit up a track here and there, but actually being a part of the big show inside the industry, like it means you get to see many new places you probably have never seen before. So, what was it like visiting different racetracks and seeing all of those new places you've never seen in person?
It was phenomenal, to say the least. Like you said, like when you're just a casual race fan, like you only get to go to like, for the most part, unless you have a lot of time and a lot of money, you go to the local ones. That's Charlotte, Richmond, Darlington. For me, growing up, that was mostly the East Coast races. So working full time in the sport starting last year and getting to travel full time with Junior Motorsports with the Michael Annett program. It's bizarre doing all that travel, because I personally, growing up, took maybe 2 flights all the way up till I was working last year, and they certainly weren't. It's a totally different thing flying with the NASCAR circuit, because the Junior Motorsports people, they fly on private charter planes. So I'm not going through Charlotte Douglas. We're flying out of Statesville. But it's totally different in that respect, as well as getting to see all those new places. The farthest I'd been before was Texas, and that wasn't for race purposes. That was because I had family out there. But I flew just about to every race. There were only a select few that I didn't go to once I started traveling in the May-ish timeframe.
Yeah, you mentioned Junior Motorsports and Michael Annett, and as I mentioned, Michael Annett's final season as a full-time NASCAR Xfinity Series driver was last year, and you were really fortunate to work with Michael during his final season. Unfortunately, as we all know, his final season was interrupted by an injury and surgery. Try to make sure he got his leg right, and luckily Annett was able to finish his final season at Junior Motorsports as a full-time race car driver. And another follow-up on that, during your time working with Michael Annett, how was the experience working with him?
It was important, I think, to my career growth, largely because while he's not necessarily like a household name outside of the sport like a Jimmy Johnson or Jeff Gordon would be, he has very high profile sponsors on his race cars. And so being able to work with him alongside the folks at Junior Motorsports, as well as people with Pilot Flying J and TMC and Allstate Peterbilt Group, it was important, because it kind of, when I started Rsmg, it was kind of a throw you off the deep end situation. It wasn't like a smaller organization, like a small sponsor. If you kind of a misstep, it's not a big deal. There's reputations on the line with all of those folks that you got to make sure you keep yourself together for.
Yeah, for sure. And Pilot Fly and Jay, Michael Annette's longtime sponsor, did a lot of great things for the sport, bringing in a lot of sponsorship and support over the years. And Michael Annette, it was nice to see him be able to turn his career around towards the very end. I know there was some criticism about Michael Annette not performing to the caliber of the equipment that he was in, but towards the end of his career, I think Michael Annette really shut up all of the people who doubted him, and he was able to get to victory lane with Junior Motorsports and end his career exactly how he wanted on his own terms. I'm sure as a lot of drivers would love to do, and I'm sure all of this has really been a dream come true for you, Michael. I remember being in, I believe it was Professor Spainhour's feature riding class with you, and I know you've really come a long way since then from a Charlotte 49er to another Charlotte 49er. It's always great to see our people finding success and doing big things in the real world. And with that said, what's been the most rewarding part of working for Rsmg?
I think the most rewarding part was that they took a chance on me. Because I graduated in December 2020, and it was like a mad dash. You're in the middle of COVID, you're in the middle of the pandemic. A lot of stuff's remote. The sport's trying to bounce back to a new sense of normalcy. But I knew coming out of college that my ultimate goal was to work at NASCAR if I could pull it off any way, shape, or form, or how. And so it was important that they it means a lot that they took that chance on me to allow me to slide into that position. I actually had reached out to them through like their little contact form on their website, just kind of shooting my shot. Just hey, this is who I am. I'm graduating in December. You got anything? And it just so happened to work out that the person whose position I'm in now was leaving the company for whatever reasons. And so it just happened to work out that the position was opening up. And so they brought me in for a couple of interviews. And after meeting the team there, as well as the owner of the company, they decided that I was the right person to bring on for the job. And so far they seem impressed. So it's been fun.
I'm glad to hear you're really having a great time, and we all have a dream of having a job that we absolutely love. So it doesn't necessarily feel like we're quote unquote working. That we're just having a really great time doing exactly what we love. And you mentioned about them taking a chance on you. Sometimes that's just all you need, and it's a lesson for all of our viewers listening wherever you are in the world. Is to just shoot your shot. If you may think if I reach out to this company that they're never going to take a chance on someone like me. Sometimes you really never know. It just might be your time. I'm a strong believer that everything happens for a reason. And I can relate to this guy because I was able to get an opportunity myself working with Business Insider, was the main media a mainstream media outlet in New York City, and they were looking for a writer to do a story on Bubba Wallace's victory at Talladega. They wanted a black writer to write about NASCAR's first black driver to win in the Cup Series since Wendell Scott did it at Jacksonville Speedway many years ago. And at first, I wasn't gonna do it because I'm thinking this is Business Insider. They're never gonna take a chance on someone like me. And then my mentor Kenneth Lee Jr. said, "Kobe, you need to message them." And at first, I didn't do it because I'm like, there's no way. I'm just wasting my time. And then he messaged me again like a day later. He said, "Did you message them?" And at the time he sent that, I didn't, but I went ahead and messaged them. And I'm like, "Yep, I messaged them," and then they basically end up hiring me to write that article right on the spot. And it just shows you that even when things seem really scary, just take a chance because you never know where it might lead. Just like RSMG did with you, Michael, they took a chance on you. They were able to give you an opportunity to show what you could do, and you're absolutely excelling right now.
It's important to be able to be willing to take those chances, not only like from the company side of things on young talent, but also take those risks as young talent of just finding a way to stand out and take those chances. There's going to be plenty of times where you just don't feel like it's for you, or like you don't fit the exact criteria they might be looking for. But who knows? Like it can work out. It did for me.
Yes. If it can work out for you, and if it can work out for me, it can work out for anyone who's watching Life on the Grid right now, and really enjoy listening to your experience at RSMG. But next, let's get to know you a little bit off of the racetrack, and for that, we're gonna bring Ben back in to have a one-on-one with you while I take a quick break.
Thank you, Kobe. And let me just say, I can absolutely relate to that as well with what I'm doing here at Grid, because Kobe messaged me the beginning of last season and presented me with this opportunity. And I also messaged Brock Beard a couple of years ago, and it just recently led to an opportunity to write for Nascar on that side of things as well. So, I completely echo what both of you have said. And it's something important to remember as we're all trying to build our own career paths here. Well, Michael, now that we've learned a little bit about what you do for a living, I want to get to know you a little bit away from the racetrack. I know most people who work in NASCAR live in the Charlotte area, as you do right now. But so many media members and members of the industry come from other places, leaving their hometowns behind to chase a dream. So if you could describe how you were able to adjust to life in the Charlotte area compared to where you grew up.
It was a big adjustment when I first came down here to go to UNC Charlotte back in 2017. Because I'm from a little town called Ruckersville, just north of Charlottesville, Virginia, and it's tiny. Like our total population in the county is like 19,000 or something like that, which is a big switch when you're coming to a college that has more than that alone. But it was a big change because I went from rural Virginia countryside, living at the foothills of the mountains, to city life essentially, and it was a swing, but it was one that I volunteered myself for, and I knew that I was walking into that when I came down here because I wanted that, I wanted something to feel like a fresh start when I came into college, and being a NASCAR fan and having the aspirations of working in NASCAR. I felt that it was important to put myself in the middle of that in Charlotte. And so that's what I did.
Yeah, I can relate to that as well. I didn't go to a massive college myself. I went to, a small private Christian school and ran D3 cross country. So, it was not quite as big as that, but it was still a bit of a culture shock. So I know it can take a while to adjust. Anytime you're moving away. I've lived in Delaware my entire life, and going up to the Boston area, Massachusetts was certainly a change in the culture for me. But, once you're there and get adjusted to things, it was a good experience for me. And I know it can be a good experience for a lot of people if they're trying to, set their career path on the right point there. What are some of your non-racing related hobbies away from the track that others might not know?
A lot of my life has revolved around NASCAR. When I was in high school, I used to dance, but I stopped that when I came into college. Right now, I like being outdoors. Hiking is fun. I wish there were better hikes closer to Charlotte. Going back to Virginia now, I realize how much I miss the mountains. But since I grew up in that area, my entire childhood, I lived there since I was like 3. In the mountains, at that point in time, they felt old, but moving to Charlotte made sense. So it's fun to go back to that stuff now, to be able to go outside and go do different random things. I like exploring Charlotte a lot and the suburbs around it. I love the little town called Matthews, which is about 20-ish minutes from Charlotte. It's the cutest little place. Things like that. I like just going out and exploring when I can, hanging out with my friends, and going home to see family whenever I have the opportunity.
And this is a similar question to follow up. We asked our last guest, Christina Lamb, the same question that I'm about to ask you here. What's something that most people, no matter how well they might know you, probably wouldn't know about you?
I'd say it might just be that I have a twin sister, because it just doesn't come up in conversation very often. I will talk about my sister, but not necessarily point out the fact that she's my twin, unless we're in a situation where someone's doubting it, and then we have to pull out our IDs and prove the point. She's got 2 minutes on me, and growing up, she always held it over my head that she was older. But yeah, I've got a little twin sister going for me.
I have a sister as well, but I have 4 years and 2 days on her, so not quite the same thing there. Well, Michael, thank you for that. And now we're going to bring Kobe back in here. I think he wants to ask you a little bit about your recent internship experience with Levon Family Racing. So enjoy that.
Thank you, Ben. And well, Michael, before we get into this next segment, I just wanted to say I like all the places around Charlotte as well. You know, Matthews, Indian Trail, all of those places. I really enjoyed NOTA. I had a really great experience there my freshman year. When I got to go out with a group of friends at the end of our first year of college, it was a lot of fun. I forgot what the name of the place was, but it was a Mexican restaurant. The soft tacos and cheese quesadillas were absolutely delicious and really nice in a little bit of NOTA. You know what restaurant I'm talking about?
Was it Sabor or Cabo Fish Taco?
That was it. Cabo fish taco. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I believe it was that one. And just like you, I come from a small rural town, and I come from Rockingham County in North Carolina, and we're extremely small. I believe our population is 14,000, or that might be my city itself, Reedsville. But in general, my hometown is really small, and and it was definitely a massive culture shock for me coming from a small town, where most people are closed-minded, don't really get out much. And well, the only time they get out is Friday nights for football because I'm from the town known as the football capital of North Carolina. They love their Weasel Rounds football around these parts. And then you get to the big city in Charlotte. I know it's on a large grand scale that Charlotte's not big. It's considered a medium-sized city, but to me, Charlotte's a big city. I remember talking with other people at UNC Charlotte. One person was from Los Angeles, and she's like, you consider Charlotte big?" She's like, "This is a small town to me." Yes. So it was quite an experience coming to Charlotte for the very first time and trying to adjust to a completely different lifestyle. And I understand in the summer of 2020, you received an opportunity of a lifetime that really helped get you where you are today, an internship for a NASCAR Cup Series organization as a marketing and communications intern for Levon Family Racing, a team that unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. But when they were around fielding the number 95 Toyota Camry for Christopher Bell during your time there, you certainly got to experience a lot of things, been exposed to the business side of the sport and what it takes to work and succeed in NASCAR. And as you mentioned, you interned during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic with the organization, a time when all of those internship opportunities seem so few and far between. And how were you able to land this incredible internship with Levon Family Racing, and how did it change your life?
Funnily enough, I got that one through Twitter. So I've yet to get a
Through Twitter?
professional position through a normal means. I've gotten mine through contact forums and Twitter.
Wow,
On one random
Twitter.
Friday night, there was a truck race on TV. I don't remember which one it was. Might have been like Vegas or something, one of the early ones. And I knew that I needed to get myself lined up for an internship for credit for the university. And so I just started DMing people left and right on Twitter. Anybody who had open DMs, I was shooting a tweet through. And I happened to send one to Bob Levon, who owned Levon Family Racing, just asking like, "Hey, here's who I am. This is what I'm looking for. Do you happen to have anything?" And so he sent me the email of one of their marketing execs and was like, "Send over your resume, and I'll let them know to expect that." And then in the coming weeks, I was able to interview with them. They reached out to my references, and they managed to they agreed to bring me on for the summer. So it was a fun experience for sure.
Wow, that's all I can say. You were able to get this internship through Twitter and reaching out to the NASCAR Cup Series team owner himself. I'm sure not a lot of people can say that they were able to get an incredible job opportunity by simply reaching out to someone on social media and being able to get quite a position like that. So that's definitely an incredible relevation there. And looking at some of the things that you were able to do with the team, according to your LinkedIn page, you're able to create Twitter content that performed extremely well, work on post-race newsletters for sponsors and potential future ones, plus working on weekly media sheets with information about the races with team and driver stats included. Besides the race team itself, Levon Family Racing had an esports team, but let's hold off on that part for now, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Overall, what was it like working for a NASCAR Cup Series organization? And can you give us a little insight into some of the new skills you were able to learn with them.
It was different for sure because it was my first professional experience. But again, it was a kind of laid back environment, which was good. They trusted me that when they handed something off, that I'd ask questions when I needed to, but otherwise be able to handle my responsibilities on my own. It was they allowed me to grow. They let me fall on my face a couple times in front of the sponsors, but they were ready to pick me up when that happened. They knew it was going to. They knew it's an intern, brand new to the sport. But I got to do a lot of cool stuff with running their social on the esports side of things, working with their PR rep, as well as their marketing execs. I was in the way LFR was set up was they had the race team that was over in the building that Spire is now in, as well as a little office a little bit up the road where all the marketing folks were at, just because of space constraints over at the race shop. So I was with the marketing execs on a daily basis, but just about every day or so, we would show our faces over in the race shop. So I was able to go meet with all those people, connect with all those people, and a lot of them are now employed with the 2311 race team. So it's cool to see that they were able to land on their feet despite the race team closing.
Yeah, and that's a big thing right there. Yes, it's just really unfortunate when these race teams close like this, and because you don't know what your future holds, and sometimes it happens very unexpectedly. When it happens like months ahead of time, you have time to put some fillers out there and see what's out there job wise. But if it, let's say, happened in October or November right after the season, that's really tough, and you're most likely not going to be able to find something in time for February when the NASCAR season kicks off in Daytona. You mentioned a really good point that shows that you were with a top-notch organization. You were an intern, brand new to the sport, and they let you make mistakes, and they were there for you and allowed you to learn from it. And I feel like that's key. And I know working in an environment like this, there's going to be a lot of pressure on you to perform and for you to be and for you to be accurate. And I feel like myself personally, I'm very hard on myself a lot. When I make one mistake, it's like it's the end of the world to me, and I'm always beating myself up because I learned from people inside the industry that yes, we're not perfect because we're human, but you need to strive to be perfect 99.99% of the time, because that time you slip up, it could be massive. Even the tiniest mistake could really hurt you. But I'm really glad that Levon Family Racing were able to work with you and really mold you into the person that you are today, working with your organization. And now looking at the esports team, Levon Family Gaming, you were able to create content for their Twitter and Facebook pages and grow the pages and do quite well with them. Esports really became a really big thing during the COVID-19 pandemic and exploded until some sense of normal life was able to return. Can you compare and contrast your experience working with the Cup and esports teams, and were you surprised to see virtual racing become such a big hit?
To an extent, before I started my internship, NASCAR had started their little iRacing programs that they were televising, and seeing the impressions and the TV numbers they were getting on those. Like, I knew esports was certainly growing, which I think helped me to be able to perform better when it came to my responsibilities with LFR. But it was certainly different from anything I'd ever worked on because I'd never really paid much attention to esports prior to my responsibilities there. And so it was a quick learning process that I had going on, to make sure I understood everything that we were doing, our drivers, the content we were able to push out, and the interactions that I needed to participate in.
Yeah, and I was also surprised by the growth of esports, virtual racing during the pandemic. But then again, I guess I really shouldn't, because at the height of the pandemic, we really couldn't do anything at all because we had the hard lockdown. We couldn't really do anything besides go to the grocery store, go to the gas station, anything like that. And there weren't any sports at all on television to watch. So what else were we gonna do but focus on focus on virtual racing? And I and myself, I competed in a NASCAR league with some members of the industry and some NASCAR fans as well. It was a lot of fun doing that every other night, scheduling races. Believe we ran 25% distance of the real life races. I mean, I used to do a little esports before it was cool with PlayStation, Gran Turismo when they were doing the Nissan PlayStation Academy type thing. Was able to run in a NASCAR league on there for a while, and then started getting really busy in high school and kind of put down the back burner. I wish I really kept up with that because who knows, might have done a lot better with esports and try to get into one of these online racing leagues. And surprisingly enough, I actually don't have iRacing. That's on my bucket list to get someday. But right now it's a little too expensive for me when my budget's right. Definitely gonna try to invest in iRacing and see how well I do on there. But overall, virtual racing was really a lot of fun while it lasted. I don't really do do it as much anymore, as life has really gone back to normal for the most part, and a lot of other responsibilities. But it was certainly quite a time to be a part of, and now we have Ben coming back because I'm sure he has some more questions to ask you.
You guys make me want to go hop on my PS5 right now and play some of the F1 games or something like that. I got to say, I was not surprised at all when COVID hit that the whole esports and video games thing took off like it did. I guess if there's maybe a silver lining to people losing opportunities because of the drawbacks of the pandemic, the fact that world kind of exploded because there was, like you said, Kobe, not much better to do during that time period, maybe opened up some opportunities in that field to make up for it. Well, Michael, everybody has their own how I got into motorsports story. I know for me, it was the Pixar movie Cars and watching the Talladega race that fall and recognizing Dale Jr. from the movie and the cameo that he had, and then being disappointed on the last lap when Brian Vickers got a little too anxious with Jimmy Johnson, and we all know how that race ended.
Yeah.
And I remember when Kobe was on my podcast, he told the story about how he was channel surfing looking for a cartoon and came across the 2007 Daytona 500. So we both got into it around the same time there. So I'm curious, how did you get interested in NASCAR and in motorsports? And when did you know this is where I want to be working when I grow up one day?
I first started watching NASCAR when I was around 7 or 8, I'd say. So right in that 2007, 2008 ballpark as well. And I got into it just because my grandfather and my dad were into it. And so they would put it on TV whenever I was at my grandparents' house. He had it on. If I was at home, my dad had it on. And I just got fixated on it. I love NASCAR. I have like 500 or more little Matchbox cars. I've enjoyed cars my entire life. Not working on them. Working on them, you open the hood and I don't have a clue what's going on. But if you ask me make, model, like powertrain, numbers, stupid stuff like that, I've gotcha. It was those kind of things partnered with back home in Virginia. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety has their testing facility in my county. And so I was able to go over there and see their facility as well. And so I'd been loving cars my entire life. And so it was kind of a known coming out of high school that whatever I did, no matter major, degree, wherever college I went to, it was kind of an expectation that I was going to somehow end up doing something with cars in my career. And it worked out.
Yeah, it's funny because I talked to a lot of people who are a few years younger than me and a few years older than me. And a lot of us really did get into the sport, around that 2006 to 2008 range. So it's funny to see how, we might not all be the same age, but a lot of us, was really around that time period. I don't know if the popularity of films like Cars, I guess kids aren't really watching Talladega Nights at that age, but there was a lot of mainstream stuff related to this world that was going on in the mid 2000s as the sport was booming, that maybe that contributed to it. Just a short while ago, you said a lot of intriguing things about your experience interning with Levon Family Racing. And I know you were able to obtain a lot of knowledge that's helped you thrive right now with where you are at Rsmg. But I know the road to where you are today can oftentimes be intimidating, especially when you're just starting out and trying to make a name for yourself. So before you were able to get your foot in the door, was there ever a time, especially with the pandemic hitting, that you maybe thought to yourself, maybe I'm not going to be able to fulfill my dream of working in the sport?
Well, yes, because when I first came to UNC Charlotte, I was a mechanical engineering major. So completely different career path than what I ended up on. So coming into college, I was thinking I was going to work at NASCAR as a crew chief. Obviously not right out of the bat, but that was my intention, was to work my way up to that. And then after, so I started in August 2017, and around October 2018, I started pondering, I'm not sure this is for me. And I didn't switch majors over to communication studies until July 2019. So I sat on it for a long, long time because I had it in my head that this is what I was going to do when I came into college, and I was terrified of letting that go. Until I finally decided that it was in my best interest to go ahead and switch. And once I did, I realized that that was the correct decision for sure. My academics improved, my GPA soared from what it was. And I had a support system behind me that allowed me to continue what I was doing. And then with a switch to communications and have a concentration in PR, I realized that I was like, okay, well, the sport's not out of the question. Like, there are PR reps all over the sport, on the sponsor side of things, team side of things, agency side of things. There's still a spot for me. I just have to find it. And it worked out.
I'm curious, just as a follow-up to that, because I've always known that, somewhere in communications, whether it's, marketing or media, broadcast, whatever, that was where I wanted to be. So I didn't have to change my major. I started in communications and graduated in communications. So I'm curious, when you start in a major and decide maybe this isn't for me, I want to go ahead and explore something else. And as you mentioned, being 2 years into college, you're really doing a lot of the stuff for your major on the back end of your 4 years there. Is it tough to try to keep up and sort of make up for lost time as you switch your major over?
Yes and no. So it worked out well because I got my associate's degree while I was in high school. So it helped knock out a lot of the gen eds coming in, on both the engineering side of things as well as the communication side of things. I think the hardest part was kind of going in and not really having any friends. I'd crafted a friend group in the engineering side of things because I lived in an engineering only dorm and I'd been there for 2 years. And so with your friend group being all engineering and nobody outside of it, it's a scary step to leave that comfort zone. And that was part of my, why it took me almost a full year to actually decide to switch my major. But with doing so, it worked because I realized very quickly that it was more up my alley, and my friends ended up supporting me through that. They realized that with my academic performance improving, that it was the right move.
Yeah, I'm certainly grateful for the friendships that I built through the different communities that I had, so I can understand where that would be sort of intimidating. It was always kind of awkward for, just speaking from my experience going into the core, general education classes where you didn't have anybody from your major that you recognized or maybe had a previous class with. It sometimes takes a while to get to know people, but I'm glad it all worked out for you. And, of course, I'm leaning on Kobe a little bit for this one because I know we're just now getting the opportunity to meet tonight. But I understand when you were a student at UNC Charlotte, obviously, you mentioned you ended up settling on communications. You also had a minor in mathematics. And it seems like you were involved on campus while juggling your course load and goals of working full-time in NASCAR. And we all know in an industry like this, really any industry, networking is super important. And you have to be careful not to burn any bridges with others because information can travel so fast. So how did your time in college prepare you for where you are today? And who's someone who helped you reach the point in your life where you are right now?
College was certainly a good starting ground for entering the sport of NASCAR. I juggled a lot between coursework and homework and things like that. I was working at one point 4 jobs. I probably could have consolidated that, and in retrospect, I should have and would have. But I was juggling a lot while still trying to keep up with all my academics. And that it translates well into NASCAR because NASCAR, as fast as the cars are on track, so is all the stuff behind the scenes. And that understanding of juggling all those balls, wearing all those different hats, and interacting with so many different people, the sport thrives on that kind of stuff as well. Like there's a lot on my plate at all times. There's a lot of different people to talk with, keep track of. And it's the stuff I did while I was an undergrad certainly helped prepare me for that.
Yeah, you're bringing up a good point about how fast things move both on and off the track. It seems like just yesterday, I was arriving on campus for the first time as a freshman, and now, I've been graduated for a year and a half now, and it's kind of crazy, how fast everything has gone by. So you really have to make the most of the opportunities that you've been given. And like I said, I'm glad that it's all worked out for you. You're in a very good place right now. And I think we'll bring Kobe back on the screen here one more time to help close out the show.
Yeah, before we close out the show, Michael, switching to communications, I'm sure you remember the class Com Theory. Probably want to forget that class. Every UNC Charlotte communication majors I know has at least one Com Theory horror story. So I'm just wondering if you have any horror stories from Com Theory that you can share with us.
I don't know that I had any horror stories per se. I'm pretty sure I had that with Crane. It was a lot because it was one of the first courses out of pre-com and into communications. So it felt stressful to me because that first semester going into communications, like I still didn't have it wasn't a full communications course load. I had a lot of math classes I was taking to finish up the math minor. And so it was a lot of back and forth kind of between the engineering side of things and the engineering buildings and where comm was. And so I don't think I had any horror stories per se. Actually, I was stressed about it, but largely because I had heard those horror stories from other people and from reading online and the stats they throw at you off day one of how many people failed the class. So it kind of was a burning stake where you were like, I focused very heavily on that course to make sure I did not fumble the ball like a lot of people apparently do.
Yeah, and I'll share with you right now. I actually fumbled the ball in Com Theory my first time around. Yeah, I have a lot of horror stories. Reading ratemyprofessor.com. I'm not sure if that's still a thing. Probably is. We read them about the professors, how hard the class was, and up to Com Theory, I was actually a straight A student all throughout high school. Throughout all of my semesters in high school, I was on the A honor roll every single semester but one. So I made 1B in high school from freshman year through senior year. So going into Com Theory, I have to say it was a massive, massive humbling experience to me. And it's interesting you say you had Crane. I had Crane the second time around. The first time around, I had Professor Hansen, and I did not do well in that class at all. Like you, I spent most of my time focusing on that one class because I know that one class would determine my entire future. And I don't know if it's that way at other universities, but I think it's really wild how one class can determine your entire future at a university or even your career path. Because I knew if I didn't pass Com Theory the second time, I would have to make a hard decision. I love UNC Charlotte. Did I want to stay at UNC Charlotte if I failed the second time, or did I want to continue to pursue mass media and communication and journalism at another university that wouldn't necessarily be the best because I needed to be in Charlotte to make all of those connections and network with people in NASCAR. So the first time I was in Com Theory, did really, really bad on the test. I'll just be honest with all of you. I made an F in that class. It was the first F I've ever made in my entire life. It was very depressing and demoralizing. I thought I was done for, to be honest with you. But then pull myself back together. I built a really close relationship with my TA Gordon, who also who told me he was going to be in Dr. Crane's class the following semester, and said, if you get in that class next semester, I'm going to make sure you pass and move from on into your major from pre-com student to a com student. And just like that, I was able to get into Dr. Crane's second semester Com Theory class, and I was actually the very last one to get into the class. They take a max of 120 students, and when I signed up, there was 119 that signed up. So I got the very last spot, and I still had a hard time in Dr. Crane's Com Theory class, but not as hard of a time. And I was able to pass the class by 1 points, and they only take a C or higher. So I was able to get a C in that class, like right on the dot. If I had done 1 point worse, it would have been over for me. So sometimes I think about how close it would have been if I hadn't have just kept on pushing and it was just quite an experience in
Yeah.
in that.
It'll humble you real quick when stuff doesn't go your way. Engineering threw those curveballs at me left and right. I remember I took a math class. I took differential equations with one professor. It was my first time seeing that content, and it did not click. I'm pretty sure I got an F in that class as well. And it's bizarre how much a professor can make the difference, because I took the class again in the spring with a different professor, and I went from that like 57 final grade to a 97. It's bizarre what kind of difference it makes, as well as seeing that material for the second time, but taught a different way.
Yeah, and that's why I felt like I did better with Dr. Crane than Professor Hanson, because his teaching style suited me a lot better than her teaching style, and I just really had a massive struggle with the way that she taught things. She taught like straight out of the book, and the book had a lot of complicated language that I probably would not still understand today if I'm being honest with everyone. And he taught old school on a projector, and he used real life examples to help us be able to learn the material, which really helped me out a lot. And don't even get me started on engineering stuff, because coming into college, I thought I was going to be an engineer, and through high school I joined the robotics team to try to get some experience before going into college, and I was really bad at it. So I decided that engineer was not for me, so I decided to just stick with mass media and journalism, just do something that I'm talented at, something that I can excel at, because engineering was not it at all. And Michael, we definitely want to thank you for joining us tonight on Life on the Grid. We encourage all of our viewers to follow Mike on social media, Twitter and Instagram. You can follow him at Rolling the Dice, DEIS, not DICE. And if you enjoyed tonight's episode, be sure to take 5 minutes after our show, visit Grid Network Patreon, and consider investing in us, keep us on the air long term. And you can buy a coffee for your favorite on-air talent at Grid Network, or you can even buy one from Michael. Any amount will help us grow. If you look below in the video description, use the referral code GRIDnet on public.com. That's going to give you $5 to invest in the stock market. Another way to support us here at Grid Network. And Michael, before we let you go, you have any final words you'd like to share?
I appreciate y'all having me on. It was fun to get to talk about it. I don't get an opportunity very often to reflect on how I've gotten to where I am today, besides in my own head. So it was cool to get to talk about it and go back to those memories that I had from high school and my internship and college in general, up to where I am now with Rsmg.
Yeah, Michael, really happy you were able to talk with us tonight. And if there's anything we can do for you in the future, please let us know. Really had a great time chatting with you. And next, we have a musical guest for this episode. And I know for the last few episodes, we haven't had a musical guest. We're finally glad to have that again. And you just heard from one of my former classmates, Michael. Now you get to hear from another one of my former UNC Charlotte classmates perform his song. He's also a high school classmate, too, from Reesville High School in the 336. Nice to be collaborating with another Reesville Ram, sharing a song from his latest EP, 22, with our Grid Network viewers watching all around the world. His music is available on all platforms. Please sit back and enjoy Too Many Times by R&B singer and songwriter Eli Ahmad.
Lately things ain't the same. You've brought me so much pain, and you expect things not to change. But see, you play with my heart too many times before, and you tore it apart too many times before. Now I won't let you back, cause I did it too many times before. And you can't get me back, no you did it too many times before. You played me, I let you, you hurt me, forget you, and I won't won't let you back to my heart. Baby, you told me that you were gonna love me forever. Too many times. And baby, you can't expect me to be here. I'm forever gone. Yeah, you played with my heart too many times before, and you tore it apart. Yeah, and I won't let you back, cause I did it. And you can't get me back, no you did it. You see you play with my heart, no. And you tore it apart, no. Too many times before. And now I won't let you back, cause I did it. Yeah. Too many times